you all have a glass of something and are sort of relaxed and comfortable, we will, of course, keep bringing around some drinks. And with that, I'd also like to welcome our moderator, Preeti Mahajan, to take over. A little bit about Preeti. She's had an intimate association with the F&B industry. She's had a 2-decade-long career with the Taj Group in various capacities, from design development, launching palaces, safari lodges. She's also a travel evangelist and writes on design, travel, and has been featured in all leading publications. Preeti, over to you.
Very warm welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's got a nice glass of sparkling with them and everyone's like settled in, yeah? Okay, great. So I'm going to do a quick introduction and then we'll get rolling. So we have Chef Anjali here who has a really, really interesting history, which she's going to talk about. But a couple of things about her. She's moved to India about 4 years ago, and she's got a very interesting outpost in Bandra called Flavor Diaries, which is essentially her whole aim is to kind of, get people to associate with food in a very positive way. So the institute looks at, it hosts cooking lessons, it hosts private dinners, and it's all done in a very interesting manner because her focus is also on enjoying each other's company, making memories over food, and at the same point in time, obviously there's always the very important perspective of health and all its associated benefits. Anjali's a personal icon is Jamie's Olivier's, and she's had the good fortune of associating with him and working in his cookery school, as well as hosting a TV show with him. I hope I did justice. Okay, so Anjali and I haven't really met before, and everyone else here is a personal friend. So I was like, okay, I have to make sure that we get to know you better, and also that we introduce you properly. Aditi really actually needs no introduction. I mean, she's quite an icon on the F&B scene in Bombay today. And while she's the force behind Mask, which is an award-winning culinary experience, I would say, not only in Mumbai, but also in India. She also runs a catering company with your mom, yeah? So Sage and Saffron. And Aditi's background is interesting because she eventually discovered her passion was food. Before that, she was in the finance industry, and she's going to talk a lot more about what else she does and how she balances her various roles. Sonal, okay, so Sonal is a master of wine, and she's going to tell you what that means. But what I have to tell you is she's amongst one, and the only one in India, but amongst one of 390 all over the world. So it's a great privilege to sit next to you, Sonal, and also she's also going to talk about and touch about the various 360-degree that she does around wine, because she hosts wine clubs, she has an academy, she hosts awards, they institutionalize surveys. I mean, there's a huge world out there, yeah. So, Amrita, okay. So Amrita is forever evolving. I mean, everyone knows Mummy Ka Magic, and then she was in TV and in movies, and then to hosting her food show, to becoming a personal chef. So to becoming a chef. So her journey has been quite interesting. It's been quite. I would say that while it's all in the same industry, but it's interesting to see her kind of play different roles at different points of time in her life. And we'll hear more about that. Okay, so Chinu, and Shalarna. She's a force of nature, I have to say. I mean, like you look at her and she's tiny, but she's just so forceful. And I've had the pleasure of working with her over many years. She's hosted some amazing parties for us. She runs a catering company called Gaia Gourmet. And they're not only professional, but they're also extremely creative, and that's just wonderful. Other than that, again, everyone here plays so many diverse roles. I mean, she writes, she's a regular contributor for Vogue. She's starting a healthy foods delivery service, and also it's not just healthy ingredients, it's about artisanal products. She also hosts many shows, so there are many hats that she wears. Okay. And finally, last but not the least for sure, and also a host for the evening, Advaita, is the founder and editor of India's largest consumer publication, Travel, Food and Wine. And she has a long association with F&B. But today we're going to talk to her about her role as a content maker, her role as a trendsetter, her role as a taste maker. So, over and out.
Thank you.
My first question is to Aditi. So, Aditi, what's very interesting is that you've got a very, you've really achieved a lot today. And it's actually all happened in a pretty short span of time. I think it'd be lovely if you could share some highlights of your journey with the audience and also talk about what inspires you. Because I guess to do the kind of work that you do, you have to be a really inspired person.
Thank you. So I have to say my journey to get into the into the food business was really a happy mistake. I was pursuing a rocking career in finance and trading in the stock market, and but I applied to business school, and actually I found out I was pregnant the same year. So, the time that you spend at your parents' house after your delivery, my mom used to run like cooking lessons at home, and my family has always had a very keen eye towards food, and our holidays revolve around eating food and restaurants, and I think that was pretty much how we planned our vacations, was always around food. And so she used to run cooking lessons at home, and it would really annoy me how unprofessionally it was run, because obviously she was just doing it out of passion. And because I was so bored, because I used to work such long hours, I was like, okay, I'm going to help you professionalize your setup. Soon I took over and I realized that it was something I was truly, truly passionate about, and started a catering business from home. So tiny steps, but very quickly, felt like I had the appetite, or, I could take the risk, because I was always sort of a risk taker, and decided to go get a professional kitchen, which actually the restaurant space was actually going to be my industrial kitchen for my catering. Again, a happy mistake. I met my partner, the head chef of the restaurant, Prateek. We were introduced by a common friend, and literally over coffee, he'd like kind of laid out his whole vision of, what he'd want to do if he had to open a restaurant. And it was literally like my whole life, on all my travel experiences is literally what he was relaying. And I was just like, what? I think I have the space, and I'm ready to do this with you. And literally over a cup of coffee, that's how Mask was born.
Your journey from where you were to moving to India, and you earlier when we were speaking, you mentioned that everything was about memories over food, and how your mother and your grandmother's cooking played such a vital part of your growing up. And so tell us about your movement, and I'm sure they'll love to hear everything that you told me this afternoon, and again about your inspiration.
So I was born into a food family, and we distribute food all over the world, and it's Indian food. And we do that through supermarkets. So I was very privileged growing up, where I would get to travel with my parents on school holidays. Oh, I'd just get shipped off somewhere so they could, travel for work. There was no time to have any holidays for them. So they would take us to work regularly. So I got exposed to the food industry from more of a retail perspective. Very much enjoyed it. And all of our conversations, similar, I think, to you, that most of our conversations around the dinner table was all about food and where we're going next and what we're eating next. And we were exposed as children to so many different ingredients. We were definitely taught to value food. It's very important in our lives, not just to nourish ourselves, but also it's important to know where your food comes from. It's important to know about food waste. How do we minimize that? We were in the food industry, the retail industry, so obviously minimizing waste was huge. So we could save money for our business at the time. And so that gave me a little bit of understanding about world cuisine, and it made me very excited about it. And all of my favorite memories are all around food and my parents and everything that came with that. And that kind of made me really want to explore food in a very different way, as opposed to what I think I was being exposed to. I wanted to make sure that I was actually touching the food. I was getting very excited about that. So I went into the chefing world. So it was a case of touching it, not just talking about it from a PR perspective, which is what I was doing a little bit at the office with them and the PR team. And that also then led me to my Jamie Oliver life, which you mentioned, who I'm a huge fan of. And I really admired him as a chef. And he was one chef that I hadn't worked with. I'd already been teaching Indian cookery as someone who was just an avid reader. It was around the time, when I joined the industry, it was around the time that food television had started to really pick up. And there were a ton of food magazines out there. So all I used to do was watch food TV and read food magazines, even to the point where my dad would come into the TV room in our home and said to me, if you don't do something in food, I'm going to be really disappointed. Like that, because that's all I did. I was just obsessed with it. And it was never obsession with eating it. It was almost watching other people eat. And that kind of weird obsession that you get, I think, as a feeder, because that's what my mum was, that's what my grandmother was. They were both feeders. And I think that's where I got that from. And so I'd already been chefing for quite a while. I wanted to professionalize that, and so I went to chef school. And after I finished chef school, absolutely obsessed with food in a whole new manner, because I then met my tribe. I found people I could connect with who were happy to talk about food in the same way as me. And one of the chefs that I hadn't worked with was Jamie Oliver. I had the privilege of working with a lot of other top chefs when I was in England, and I really loved Jamie, and I loved his approach to food, and I love what he's done for food. And so I thought the best way to do that would probably be to work for him, because how else do you get in someone's face if you can't actually call them up? And you can't get a meeting with him, it's impossible. So I thought, let me just go and work for him. Let me see, I'll maybe give it 6 months or a year. And I just loved it. I loved what I did with him. And it was just so much fun. And I worked in his cookery school as a cookery teacher, teaching international cuisine, which was something I couldn't do as part of our family business, where I was teaching Indian cuisine. And I was very lucky that I also got a cookbook deal while I was there. So I got to write my book, which meant I had to leave because I couldn't write my book as well as work for Jamie, because my hours were so terrible. And I had no social life, which pretty much is what's happening now. And I think everyone can resonate with that. And so I left my Jamie life, and it was around that time when I thought, what's my next step? Where do I move next? What do I want to do next? And he inspired me so much through my cookery school days with him that it made me want to open up my own school. And that's what led me to India. And that's why I moved here, to build something. India? So I get that question a lot, actually, because England would be an obvious choice. I'm living there. I'm living in London. It's amazing. But we didn't need anything cool. We have so much cool stuff when it comes to food education and fun with food and interaction with food. And I felt on my trips to India, which I was doing a lot of business trips here, I didn't feel there was enough interaction with food in a positive manner. And I wanted to do some fun stuff as a solo traveler. And you don't really get so many people who want to go out and eat by themselves here. And I feel that's such a shame. You don't get tables for one in many places. And if you're a foodie and you love traveling, as a foodie, I love to go to a cookery class. I love to do that. Even though I'm a chef, there's always something to learn. Lovely people to meet on the class who are like-minded foodies. And I couldn't find anything like that when I came to Mumbai. And I always wanted to do something in India to make my family proud, to make me proud. I felt they took Indian food to the world and have done such a fabulous job of that. I would love to be able to do something of my own associated with India, which is my heritage and I'm very proud of. And I thought this could be it. But it was the first of its kind. No one was doing anything like it. So there was definitely a bit of anticipation. But I love it, and I'm so happy I did it. And it's been a rough ride. I think everyone who's an entrepreneur can share their own entrepreneurial journey, but I think the highs are really great, and it's definitely worth it for that alone, I think. The lows are low, but we all have lows in our life.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you. Sonal, would you like to share with us your journey, a few highlights?
So this was around the time when I had finished all my studying, and I had spent about 10 years in a corporate life. And I was at this juncture in my life where I was working for a NASDAQ listed Fortune 500 company in a fairly senior role having a very rewarding career, traveling around the world, learning all about the corporate life. When suddenly a point came in my life where I felt the desperate need to reinvent myself. I just wanted to jump out of all that red tape, politics, being driven from this 9 to 6 sort of a humdrum life. And I felt, God, what am I doing? This is not even allowing me to showcase my skills or really allowing myself to put myself out there and so on. So this was around the time when I was recently married. But what had happened before marrying my husband, who's British, is I'd had the opportunity of traveling with him to several countries on holidays, but particularly London, where we have friends and family. And I had been through his eyes and with him exposed to the wine and food culture overseas. And I couldn't help but feel fascinated about, could India actually have a culture like this back home? Because this was at a time about 12 years ago where India was so nascent in its wine journey. There was just a handful of producers making wine, a growing interest in wine among consumers, but there was yet nobody who was looking to educate, consult, advocate, communicate, do any kind of professional work in the field of wines. Yeah, we had some self-proclaimed experts who'd read a couple of books, or a few others who were drinking expensive wines and flaunting or claiming to be wine experts. But there were no qualified professionals who were backed with solid credentials. And I looked back and I thought, why not me? So that's where I took that bold decision. I quit my career. I took a flight to London because at the time there was no other way of learning about wines. I realized I had suddenly chosen a passion that I knew nothing about. So I literally had to start my journey from scratch. I booked a flight to London because that was one of the best institutes to learn about wine from. And from there started a journey. I mean, I literally then didn't take my foot off the pedal. I studied wines for the next 10 years, but obviously that's not how long I waited to start practicing it back home. Because in India, because it was a totally unique field, when I started to approach it on a professional level, doors opened very quickly. I got opportunities to do work. And I realized that I was being an entrepreneur in wine and learning at the same time. And one thing led to another.
So you play so many different roles and you do them very beautifully. So what excites you? What motivates you to do what you do, and what has been motivating you in your journey so far?
Thank you, Preeti. Hi, guys. So, I think my life and role as a chef has also evolved, and many different things have motivated me at different points, which also you kind of outgrow them and you find new motivation. So, my whole aim to go to cooking school after college was so I could go to Goa and open a restaurant and be a hippie on the beach. That was I'm going to be a chef to do that. Then I went to Goa and I was a hippie on the beach and I opened my restaurant and it was a total disaster. So I had to come back to the city and all of that kind of stuff. And then my goal was I can't be a hippie, I have to make money, right? So that was the next motivation for me, which then we put our head down, me and my husband, he's also a chef and we work together, thank God. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be able to survive in this industry. A support system, no matter what you do, is integral to your life, right? So whether you're running a restaurant, any kind of business needs a support system. I mean, any of us who have kids especially know that if you want to achieve something, you definitely need to know who's feeding your kid at home. So, leading from the money part, then we made some money, little bit of it. Thank you. We actually started our business very much, again, small scale from the house, only expanded when there was enough demand. And I think that has been a smart move of not over expanding and overreaching. But if there's demand for your business, then you grow, And then when I got pregnant, I wanted to go back to Goa. It's a bit of a schizophrenic kind of personality. Which I did. I took some time off because I had a child late because I knew initially I was working too hard to even think of having a kid. I couldn't, So we waited for a time when we were slightly settled and then had the baby and then took 2 years off, and now I'm back again and I'm motivated about being in the city again. So it's been a constant recalibration of what you need in life, let's say. So that's what continuously motivates me.
It's a huge job to be a tastemaker, right? Which is what really, as a editor-in-chief of a publication, which is essentially a luxury publication, which is getting you the best of what's happening in the world and India, your role is. So how do you, so what makes you do that day in and day out? Because I know I've been in a similar industry, I am in a similar industry, and I know how difficult content is.
Well, let me put it this way. I don't want to talk about maybe what makes me do it. I'll tell you what it is that maybe is a part of my role, because what makes me do it is just that I love food and I love to eat. So I said, why not make a profession out of it? But see, as a tastemaker, yes, it is a responsibility. But I don't see it as just that. We're a nation now, where being a critique or being somebody who talks about food, is no longer something that is reserved for the few people who've actually studied it, who've actually learned about it, who've actually done, any kind of professional education in it. Everyone, walking around is a foodie, right? So everyone likes to put their inputs about, what they like, what they don't like. And everyone likes to, everyone is basically, there's bloggers, there's influencers, and there's all of that culture that's happening now. And within that, I have to maybe, follow my own instincts and have a certain responsibility. So I have, maybe I just see it in a way that, exposure is the key. You have to be really well exposed to all kinds of food, all kinds of environments, all kinds of restaurants, and only then can you really talk about food. Only then can you really say, is this good or bad? If you've not really eaten in a certain kind of a restaurant, you're not going to necessarily like it. And also approaching food in a way that you don't have favorites. Everyone asks me, this is the first question everyone asks me, which is your favorite restaurant? And I genuinely don't have an answer. If they ask me, what do you like to eat? And I genuinely can't say one thing that I like to eat, because it isn't, I think as a part of my job, I'm supposed to have an open mind to different kinds of food, to different kinds of restaurants. I go to different restaurants for different reasons. If I'm going out with the girls, I'll go to a different place. If I want to go have a meeting, if it's more of a formal setting, I'll go to a different place. Depends on what I want to eat. I go to some restaurants and only eat one thing on their menu. So it really depends. It's really hard to say what kind of restaurants I like. So when, in an age of say where people are writing reviews on Zomatos, when people are opening restaurants and you get bad reviews, I really feel that, yes, maybe the person wrote a bad review, but are you maybe the right audience for the restaurant anyway? And I would like to maybe, ask all your restaurateurs here that, when you get bad reviews sometimes, I just think that, but you're not the right audience sometimes, for the restaurant. So you can't please everyone. You can't really, appreciate food unless you've had a, huge spectrum of exposure. And I think that is something, I see a few students here, and I think that is something that I would like to say, that, I think if you want to grow in this industry, if you want to do something in this industry, first step is always exposure. Like Sonal also said, when she was, out with her husband in London and, she was drinking wine, just going to these restaurants, that culture did not exist here at that time. And then when she was exposed to it, that's when she decided to replicate it, and do something about it. So I think the first step is definitely, trying a lot of things, educating yourself, and also doing so not just in a way that, okay, my neighbor is doing this, or, maybe in a professional say, maybe okay, the next restaurant next door is doing this, but putting yourself on a world map and say, where do you stand on a world map? Where is this good food if you put it out there in the world map, or is it just good food as compared to, the next door restaurant, right? And also not be so afraid to be, driven by innovation. Don't succumb to maybe, what is acceptable by the masses. Gimmicky food, putting dry ice and making, smoke coming out of things is not creativity, So, underlining those things, so as running a publication, printing things, when I have to print something, so I always think, where is this on the world map? Is this really creative, or is it just gimmicky? Is it really good quality food? Is it sustainable? Do they follow sustainable practices? So these are all the questions that I have to ask myself. I don't go by, an XYZ blogger is talking about this, and this today, and I have nothing to post today, So I don't post anything if I don't have anything to post today. I much rather wait for the right opportunity to, or have something that's really special to talk about. And that's how you kind of maybe create a niche for yourself as a tastemaker, because then when you say something, people genuinely follow you because they know that they can relate or they appreciate your taste in something.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your question.
you
Oh,
did.
thank you.
Thank you. That's very detailed, and I think it's great because it also gives them a sense of what to look out for. So Amrita, over to you. From being a model to an actor to a host to a chef. I mean, we've all kind of we all know Mummy Ka Magic has been a part of our lives for a very long time. So, but to becoming a chef, I mean, I think it's quite a drastic and quite a bold step. So, what would you like to share with us?
My story is so different from all of them put together. I mean, when I listen to them, I have to say I'm very privileged to be sitting with such accomplished set of women. So thank you for having me here. My story is so different, guys. My story of becoming a chef started because I just wanted to be with my son. I had modeled and acted all my life. I had led a certain erratic schedule. And when my son was born, I didn't even go out to work. Like most of my contemporaries were out to work within 3 months, 4 months. But I decided that for the first 1 year, 2 years, till the time I feel that my child is absolutely ready to be left, I'm going to step out of the house. And I didn't. I didn't even start working out for a year. And she put on a lot of kilos, and so did I. When I was pregnant, I put on a lot of weight because, when you're a model and actor and on the silver screen, you're very watchful of what you eat. But when I got pregnant, I thought that was my ticket to just eat whatever the hell I wanted. And then when I was feeding, I put on even more weight. And I just couldn't be bothered. I didn't even, my whole family and my friends said, "Ye to gayi. Her life is over. This is all she's going to do. She's going to sit and feed her child." And technically, that's what I did. But I became a fitter mom when I decided to lose my weight. I started working again, back to my acting, and I just couldn't do it. I would go out and I would hear something with my child, I would run back. I just couldn't get into it. And then, of course, the weaning process had started and the whole fussy eater business started, as happens with all children. And I started just playing around with food with Agastya, who's my son. And as luck would have it, or you may call me a Destiny's Child, the show Mummy Ka Magic was offered to me. And that time when I took it up as another acting stint. Because I wasn't a chef. I was just a cook who's a mum who loves to cook. I've cooked since I was 8 years old because like a typical Punjabi family, daughters are trained well by their mothers. You observe them, you cook. So I can call myself a decent cook, but I was definitely not a professional chef. And when this show happened, I did it for a year, just, enjoying it. And then it started getting a lot of encouragement and a lot of appreciation. And I just realized that, this is going to give me a chance to actually stay at home all the time and yet have a career. And I really, it was a very selfishly motivated business. I could learn out of home. Of course, I went out, and when I finally decided to become a chef, I went to Singapore and I did an advanced culinary course. But it all started back in my home, in my kitchen, for feeding my son and then kids all around India to begin with, and now the world, as healthy as food as possible, but disguise it in as unhealthy way as possible. So that is my USP. I try and make junk food healthy, but yet maintain the junk food look and feel.
Thank you, sweetie. That was very honest, and we appreciate that. So I'm going to actually now open up a few questions because I know Abha's like keeping a very close watch on the time, and I'm going to just open it out to the panel and whoever wants to answer that. I think one thing that's really important and which defines us is also challenges and failures. Because I think there's really no one, I mean, I would say I really don't know anyone who's not had a personal or a professional failure, however big or small. A failure, the way I would define it and see, is when you are not able to meet your own goals. So would any one of you like to take up this question, then how do you deal with challenges? How do you deal with failures? I mean, what do you do?
Since I was talking about our first restaurant, which was such a big disaster, it was also the biggest learning lesson, as cliched as it sounds. And it was better than any like hotel management school you can go to, because when you open a restaurant of your own on that small scale, and you are also your own chartered accountant and your own purchase manager and your own commie and your own dishwasher and your own everything, you really learn a lot about the industry you're in, what you don't want to do, what are not your goals. So in that sense, like, failure is really a great clarity giver, that you think that you have these visions that, like, that's the thing. My vision was, oh my God, I'm going to be on the beach, it's going to be great. But when it doesn't work out, then you have real clarity about what you need to do next to actually have the life you're imagining. So
To that, from a completely different non-restaurant angle, that challenges can happen sitting at home also. And earlier, I mean, the other reason why I also decided to be a chef is because today being a chef is quite celebrated. It's not like just being inside a hotel or in a hot kitchen. You can actually have a career based out of food. And the challenge that I faced, and I think a lot of people face, is always trying to prove yourself and try and be that chef, what a really trained chef is. And when I told myself that I need to stop doing that, when I just need to be the mother who loves to cook healthy food for children and finds very innovative and creative ways to do it, it just started becoming that much easier. And today I can say that I have a full-fledged career based on that, and it's, by God's grace, it's been amazing. But the challenge was to fight yourself first, to stop trying to prove that you are, a chef who's been trained for 20 years, because you're not. A lot of times you're not. A lot of home cooks I keep meeting, home chefs, and they're fabulous. They're doing so much from their homes, and I think they face their own set of challenges, but they just have to believe in what they do.
I don't know whether you ladies will all agree with me, but I almost think there is a pattern about how failure appears in our lives. And I honestly, this may sound slightly philosophical, but I truly believe that failure and success are at a hairpin bend from each other. So almost inevitably, after you've had your worst failure, comes a breakthrough, and therefore thereafter comes success. If I track back and I look at throughout the journey, whether it was trying to achieve the title of Master of Wine, or trying to attain something professionally, or trying to get something. Huh?
Okay. So I have a question for you on that. Tell us, of course, please share with us what is Master of Wine.
So a Master of Wine, yes.
Also at the same time, tell us, how do you make sure that you're ahead of the curve? Because like you said, Master of Wine, you're the one and only in India.
Brilliant.
So how do you make sure that you're always ahead of the curve on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I question myself about that every day, but I'll try and answer that as well. So the Master of Wine is a title. It's a global title given by the Institute of Masters of Wine in the UK. And in all humility, it is widely considered the world's most prestigious title. So it is considered like the top accolade in the world of wines. In the last 70 years, there have only been 390 people who've been given this title. And the reason why it's so treacherously difficult to get the title is because you take some examinations that have a horrifically, excruciatingly low pass rates, because you have to not just take theoretical exams, but they also involve blind tasting of wines, where you have 36 wines given to you, and you're required to identify the grape variety, where they're from, vintage, commercial potential, quality, so on and so forth. And pass rates can be as low as 4%. Now, what makes it even doubly difficult for an Indian to achieve that is because our opportunities to taste wine here, or any kind of exposure to wine lifestyle, is virtually negligible. So when I started my journey in wines, for some, I don't know, crazy reason, I set my sights on this title from day one. I said, I want to be India's first Master of Wine. I resonated a lot when Advaita said, when you start to put a goal, it should be globally competitive. It should be about something that, about failure also. If you're failing, You should fail at so high a level that you're still better than those around you. You know what I mean? Because you're going to meet with a lot of failure in trying to achieve something on a global level. So for some reason, it led to an obsession for me to achieve this title. And then, I embarked on this journey of travel, staying away from home, extended periods of time. And mind you, I haven't spoken much about motherhood and marriage, but I was married. I had my daughter. My daughter came into my life in 2009. So this was all part of the journey. She's lived this journey with me, and I was still trying to achieve this title and going absolutely nuts. I had turned into a nomad, not just being at home. And I think support system is so critical because you really need that backing. You need at least that one angel in your life who supports you 100%, backs you up 100%, and you're able to just go out there and do what the hell you need to do. So that's a little bit about, anyway, the Master of Wine title. Your other question was, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Is by making yourself relevant, because I think the journey doesn't stop, right? That's where it starts. Once you've attained that goalpost, whatever that goalpost is for you, most of us tend to think that, oh, now I've reached the goalpost, now I can just enjoy and reap the benefits of it all the attention will come to me. It doesn't. Actually, that's where life begins and not ends. And you have to continuously stay relevant. And that's when once you're seen as a leader, you have to be seen as making important contributions, whether it's in form of creativity, innovation, and so on. So because for me, I was fortunate because wine is such a blank canvas. I had the opportunity to paint my own picture. And so I just sort of took the opportunity to look at what was happening overseas globally and what lacked, which was pretty much everything. And then I just decided to one at a time launch into different initiatives, whether they're education, consulting, research, awards, all sorts of things. But it's a journey.
I just want to add to what she's saying here. I think that's very important, that if you choose to do something, you do the 360 around it. Whatever it takes, whether it's marketing, advertising, which is what we used to typically do, or like she's doing, she's getting into education, she's taking a higher position where they're even getting into surveys and where they're looking at, doing wine clubs and demystifying the whole experience. So I think that 360 around whatever you choose to do is also very interesting.
And also, I think some of the other ladies on the panel will agree, but when we are trying to not stay ahead of the curve, but remain relevant, we often have this thing of, oh, I have an idea, but if I don't launch it, someone else is going to launch it, because I honestly believe the opportunity belongs to the one not who gets the idea, the first one who acts upon it. So acting upon an idea is incredibly important. I used to always have my husband used to keep saying, if you don't do it, someone else will. And that was enough to keep me awake. That was like, oh my God, someone else is going to do it. Let me do it. So it's like, I don't know, it's being slightly obsessive, I suppose, but it kind of helps sometimes.
Aditi, I think I'm always very inspired. I have one daughter, and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm like, of course, running a house, being a corporate wife, being mum to an 8-year-old, and having my own work and my writings, I find it like, oh my God, I really don't have any time left. So I wonder, when I look at people like you, you always have a smile on. I have never ever met you when you're not smiling and you're not happy. And how do you do it all? 3 boys, a restaurant, a catering business. And the other thing about her, like she's there at the restaurant. If you go to a party which her company has catered, she's there. I mean, like, what is the secret of this boundless energy? And second, tell us, what are your guiding principles? What are those things that you always abide by, which really give you this amazing ability to achieve everything that you set out to achieve?
I think I believe in more is more. But truly speaking, I think I never put myself in any sort of guilt. Like I don't think, like if I'm at work and I'm away from my kids, I'm making myself feel guilty. And I think that's truly how I, go by my day, because I truly love what I do at work. So why should I feel guilty about it? And, feel like I'm not taking time.
An amazing role model for your kids.
So, but obviously all this said and done, I think support system is very, very important. I'm very, very lucky to have a very, very supportive husband, family. And I really fall back on help. Like I'm very happy to ask my friends and family for help. I don't shy away from it at all. So I'm not egoistic about like, oh, I can do it all. Of course, like I probably come out seeming like I can do it all, but it's a lot to do with the role models that I look up to within my friends and family that actually make it happen. But I think truly, if I have to, I can't really pinpoint like what success means to me, because goals are always changing. You know, they're changing at work, they're changing at home. So goals are always changing. But I think what really gets me by the day is really some time for myself. I love watching Netflix, eating a bowl of cereal, sometimes going for a walk and exercising. I think
Is it also the power of collaboration? Can I also say the fact that you maybe collaborated with your mom and you've got like a great partner in Pratik, you know? I mean, is it also the fact
of
that
course,
you're
it's partner
the
of
right
collaboration, and I
associate?
think that's the philosophy at Mask, is where we really felt like giving back to community, being inclusive is very, very important. So it's also working with the right, team, building the team together with the right people, like-minded people, because you alone can't have a great idea without a great team. And I think that inclusiveness is what makes Mask, is what makes me.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you, Anjali, but I don't want to ignore this side of the. So Advaita, I feel that the way consumers absorb content is changing, especially for someone who's in the publishing business. So how do you deal with that? And then I have a second part of the question, which is that do you think the whole role of the influencer, the blogger, which is so prominent these days, that do you think they're actually really able to inspire people and influence purchase behavior?
Anyone tells me when I tell them, oh, I run a magazine, and they say, oh, wow, is it profitable? You know, I mean, a print magazine, and these days, does anyone really read a print magazine? Yes and no, both. I mean, everyone who has my print magazine, they all tell me it's lovely and, they love to read it. But it's not about, I think, it's about the idea of having the print magazine and you go back and you read it. Or there's also information that's available digitally that you read. But I don't think it's about whether you read it in print or in digital. That's the real question. It's about the information that you're actually disseminating and who is that information relevant to. So if you find the right audience, or you stick to content that is for a particular kind of an audience, then you always find people who are interested in your kind of work. It's just about finding the right fit. Now, what I do, I find that, I did not, when we talk about travel, food, the best chefs in the world, the best, we talk about recipes as well, but also from the best chefs in the world. So it's all about bringing whatever is the best in the world, literally, in a publication. And I decided to take this path because it's something that made me myself, that I thought I was curious about. If I wanted to make dal chawal, then, all our mums and, grannies and everyone makes amazing dal chawal, right? So nobody wants to do a recipe about that. But I thought, how interesting would it be to get some of the best chefs? If we went to a restaurant, we love some food there, how interesting would it be to get that recipe and for him to teach us something? So in recipes, we followed that approach. In travel, we followed an approach of, there's always, everyone tells me, oh, but we just look it up on Google, but I find that I have a cult of people who actually like to see what we have written, is because I don't really, a lot of times when you read reviews, you don't know who those reviews are written by. You don't know whether they live the same lifestyle that you do. They belong to the same social strata that you do. They like to eat or drink in the way that you do. So when we curate travel guides, we put together information that I think that somebody who I know would enjoy, having those experiences. So it is more about curating, again, information for a certain set of audience and connecting with those audiences. Now, in a space where, there's so much information and, all of them, everybody is talking about everything. There are very popular, Instagram influencers in food, who are posting about, say, maybe even something that, say, Starbucks is doing. Yeah, for example, Starbucks launched a new menu and somebody posted that they did a sandwich of something. Now, good for them, yeah, but I don't want to talk about no sandwich that Starbucks is selling, and I don't want to associate myself with a sandwich that Starbucks is selling. Like, I'll give you an example. I started this business about 4 years back. That was the first time I launched the magazine 4 years back now. And this time when I traveled to America, I did 4 cities. In a matter of 30 days, I dined at 75 restaurants. Now, that was quite a number. And it was all of them was some of the world's best chefs, the world's best restaurants, all Michelin star. I stayed at some of the best places, and it was it was very flattering to get those invitations. It was very flattering to have, receive that attention. And then it made me think that, why are these people bothered about me? I really was genuinely questioning that why would these people invite me? Everyone was so wonderful to me. Everyone looked after me. They really spoiled me. Thank you. She's spoiling me.
Adwaita, sorry, I have a boss I'm looking at who's like getting me to kind of be.
Okay, let me just finish what I'm saying. And I realize, and what I have come to think is because they relate to the content that I'm doing. So if I was talking about a Starbucks, and if I was talking about Cafe Coffee Day or Di Bella or I don't know, I don't want to name people. These are chains, I can name them, but other people, then maybe those are the people that would invite me, but because I was talking about all these other people who were doing, work that I, adored. So they were the kind of people who wanted to associate with me. So I think it's just about the niche that you carve for yourself, and it's about what goals you set for yourself and how you achieve them.
Do you really, because I think you're the most appropriate person on this panel to answer this. So what do you really think is the role of the influencer? Do you think that influencer is actually able to influence people, or do you think that's something, because you're right, like you rightly said, that you don't even know what that person's credentials are. So what is your take on that?
I'll tell you what, I don't see anything on Instagram and go anywhere, yeah? I don't buy anything. Unless my friend tells me, I won't do it. It's only word of mouth. It's only someone I trust. It's someone I know in my real life. Even restaurants, for that matter. Yeah? You see so many advertisements. You see so many posts on Instagram. It gives you a feel of the place, yes, but I'm not going to actually pick up my phone, make that reservation, go make a plan, dine there, unless I've heard it from a friend of mine.
So I'll just add one bit over here. I really think influencers do influence people, and a lot of times it's also beneficial if you're ready to. I think most people are following others only because they like the content that they are doing. I don't think you will have a follower unless you are creating good content. And I'll quickly tell you my thing when I share recipes or I share my fitness videos. What I do is I'm talking to the people who are following me. So I know my audience. I know exactly who's following me. And because I know there are mothers who are maybe very hardworking and they're traveling, or there are mothers at home who are so busy at home looking after their house that they don't really have the time to hit the gym, I quickly moved my Monday motivational videos, which I was very passionate about, doing these heavy weights and working out in the gym, to working out at home. And I now share 10, just a small video, which is a 1-minute video, where I tell them how you can do a 10-minute, 15-minute workout. And I cannot tell you what a positive response I've got. So I think it's about knowing your audience and creating good content for them.
So I think we can safely say that it all depends upon, you can't really dilute the role of the influencer, but it's also got to be about who is the person and you're really looking at. So I think maybe that's what both of them are really trying to say, that do you relate
also,
to the person at the end of the day?
It depends on whether you're disseminating information or you're selling a product. So that's very different,
Sure. So Anjali, I think your business model is very interesting. Of course, it's a passion. I'm sure it's a passion project. It started off as a passion project, but everything has to make business sense. So she spoke to me earlier about it. She's touched upon it briefly, but she said that it's very important for her that food was always about creating memories. So her outpost, which is Flavor Diaries, is also about getting people together to appreciate food, to understand food, to cook, but to also create memories for themselves. So what I really want to understand is that, what you're doing is that you're thinking differently, right? So how important do you think is it today for someone who's starting out to do that, to think differently, to be innovative in the way they're applying and implementing their concepts?
I think it's important to definitely think differently if that is true to yourself. If you want to follow the norm, follow the pack, that's absolutely fine. Don't think differently just because everyone else tells you so. And I think I was lucky that I did think there was another angle of food that wasn't being tapped here, that isn't being tapped in so many places. And I was very true to that. My product has always stayed the same. I've always delivered great experiences because I truly believe in it. I've never changed what I believe in. And I think that's the most important thing, is don't change just because everyone else around you is changing. And I think that's one of the messages everybody's saying is people will see through that very quickly. So be true to yourself. If you want to think differently, and in my aspect, I want people to connect with food in a positive way. I want them to understand what goes into their body is what you're going to produce mentally, physically. You will see changes. And I think you will also definitely look at food waste differently when you see how your food is made and how much it costs to create those dishes. We will definitely see a global change very soon. We all see it. We all read about it, how now food waste is so important. And I very much believe in what I'm doing, and I do not want to change that despite what everyone else might say around me, whether it's, commercial pressures, whether it's a personal pressure I put on myself. I just want to stay happy. And I'm pretty happy where I am with what I create. So I don't know if that answers your question,
It
but
does,
that's
and
where
it's
I'm
very,
at.
it's very lovely, and it's very reassuring to hear someone say that they're happy where they are and they're content, because I think that's one of the biggest. I think the couple of lessons that I learned in life along the way. One was very early in life from a boss who actually was doing my appraisal, and then I walked up to him and I said, I think I should get 4.7 out of 5. And he said, I think you should get 3. And I said, why is that? He says, because you don't know how to ask for help. And when she said that, really resonated with me. And I was like, really? Like, am I supposed to tell you that I need help? He said, yes, absolutely. You're supposed to tell me, you're supposed to tell everyone that you need help. Like, lean in, it's like the biggest thing. Like, you have to ask for help. And I think the second thing that I learned is, again, what she just said today. And I think that's such an important lesson, that sometimes it's just okay to say, you know what, I'm okay. I'm good. I like the way my life is cruising, and it's good. And it's not always really important to be always on the search, always on the lookout. So I'm going to end this panel with the last question, and that's for you. And this question, actually, I give credit to Aditi because she brought this up. So if you want to join in, please pitch in. I think today, because there's so much, there are magazines and there are restaurants and there are chefs, what's really critical is to create a brand. And what is even more critical is to continuously consolidate the position of that brand. And I think Aditi's done that beautifully. And this is her question. When we were chatting, it came up. This to you to answer, because I feel that she's managed to also do something really interesting, where she's able to separate herself as a brand from her product, which is her catering company, which is Gaia Gourmet. So you've got like 1 lakh plus followers on Instagram, and so tell them how you manage to kind of balance these two entities. And then I'd love to hear from you very quickly on what you continuously do to keep your brand relevant and top of mind.
So I guess I'm one of those blasted influencers, right?
But with solid credentials.
Yes. So, the funny thing was that I didn't have this much of a following till I started talking about my kid. Which is, I think somewhere like you were saying, the content you create has to resonate with just this universal thing about being a mom and a working mom, and dealing with your issues, being an entrepreneur, being in this position that, I am happy where I am, but sometimes it's like I've started reading this book called The 5 a.m. Club, because I think I need to start waking up at 5 a.m. to actually maybe, I've tried 6:30 a.m. It's been working so far. So also one thing in this book that I read, which was awesome, is and which actually everyone has been kind of touching upon, is comparison is a theft of joy. That is a sentence in the book which I found amazing, because there are 6 of us here who are all into food and have very, very different, distinct journeys, and you cannot compare yourself to anyone else. And I think just expressing yourself really honestly and enthusiastically and with integrity resonates. Like, people do respond, they interact with you, they talk to you. So that is a separate conversation I've started, which is totally different from my brand, which is different from what I do, what
So
I am.
I think what would be nice to know is that why do you do that? I think the why of it.
Because what I am is different from what I do. And what I am is many different aspects of happiness and negativity and this whole ball of emotions. Fitness, food, travel, husband, baby issues, nanny issues, all these things that make women women. And what I do is a chef, I make food. That is a totally different aspect of life and a different trip. So
Thank you.
separating the two is very important.
Sure. Aditi, we'll end with you. We started with you.
So for me, I think it was very important, like Sonal had also mentioned, is like to create something and give something to a culinary landscape that didn't exist. Was a very, very exciting plunge for me when we decided to embark on the journey of what we did with Mask. Was also to travel extensively within India and to kind of give, in a way, we gave back to community, because what we brought back to the table was we really empowered our diners with knowledge of, to find those ingredients or, cooking techniques that probably like our ancestors have been using for years, but wasn't given that highlight or attention, which of course now a lot of chefs are doing in the last 5 years, which is amazing. But I think for us, that was the most exciting part. And then to come back to, what it means to really create a brand and to feel proud about, to kind of leave a mark, is when we're able to collaborate with an international chef, or we're able to, appear in an international article.
Opens up a lot of doors.
It, of course, opens up a lot of doors, but also suddenly gives attention to, India's food tourism and other things, and which it's really exciting for Mask also to be part of that journey, which, other people are part of.
So what these ladies aren't telling you, because I guess it's just a part of their life, that they do a lot to keep their brands up there. I mean, it's not just social media or PR, but it's day in and day out of a lot of hard work, a lot of quality that goes in, a lot of creativity in thinking. So I think they all deserve a huge applause.
Thank you. And I think it's not just important to work hard, but to work smartly.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, do stay right there for a minute. Any questions?
So, like what I've heard from all of you, clearly you guys are successful in your domain, whatever you are doing. So my question for you is, I want to take you back to the time when you started. And what are the 3 things, according to you, that, from your experience have stuck through as a strategy, as a principle, as a motivation, whatever, and something that, you derived from your time when you were starting as an entrepreneur? So what would be 3-4 things you would?
Whom would you like? 3 questions.
Just 3-4 things that you think you would recommend someone who is starting in the business.
To manage this, maybe we could have one thing from 3-4 of you. Yeah.
That's also fine.
one ingredient you need to become an entrepreneur, perhaps.
So one thing I feel I didn't touch upon and I didn't hear on the panel was something about investing in yourself, which is self-investment, self-indulgence. Because often we think when we're trying to build a business, what do I need to do or something? But I often feel, because we touched upon building a brand, and we also, some of us talked about building a self-brand, as in you and your business sort of resonate with each other, and then cumulatively you are seen by the world as something, cohesively. So I'm a big, big believer in self-investment. And I think when you invest in yourself, whether it's knowledge, whether it's you go take a trip to expose yourself to a culinary world, or to educate on something, or do a course, or put in some money in the business or whatever. I'm a big believer of self-investment, and I believe when you take that plunge, I would say go for gold. Because ultimately, remember, whatever you invest in yourself, it all pays back, because whoever is the one paying you for your business, you'll always command a premium if in the early days you've invested in yourself. So I would say self-investment is the best investment. That's one thing I learned.
Perfectionism and it's okay that your team members sometimes don't like you so much. It's okay to obsess over perfectionism. I think that is something that is really, really important, because doing an average job with anything, whether it's an email that you send to, something that you put out, saying that, okay, whatever this work is that I put out represents me, and taking onus of what it says about yourself, and then replicating that, through all the aspects of your work. So perfectionism and obsession for it, and being okay for people to think you're a bit crazy or obsessed.
What I would like to add is to be honest. It finally comes down to the crux of who you are. So if you're trying to be somebody that you're not, it's never going to work. So be honest with who you are, whether it's influencing through your social media. I don't think I should be saying this, but don't see the followers that are being bought. Don't just don't because you want a certain number, don't buy followers. Just don't follow the herd. Just be honest, and if you're good, it's all going to be good.
Lovely.
If I may add
Yep.
quickly, I think one of the things that I feel works for a lot of people, whether we're starting out or whether we're established, is the power of collaboration. So find the right partners, invest in them, love them, nurture them, and you'll be set for life.
Amazing. All right. I think we owe this panel a really huge round of applause. I think there were some real nuggets that we can take home today, and I want to really thank each and every one of you for sharing them with us. We have a giveaway. We had a campaign for what's your best sparkling moment on social media, and Akshaya Chavan, is that you? Okay, come on up here. Akshaya's moment. She said she represented her country for singing. Do you want to tell us yourself?
I'm really not good at framing words, trust me. I just get nervous every time. But okay, so everybody knows Nas Daily. He makes 1 minute video. And so he had come to Juhu. He had flown from Singapore to Mumbai. And so it was a very huge crowd. And there I was standing nervously. I was just hoping, Akshay, agar ye tera hai na, ye teko bulayega. So yeah, so I just rose my hand, and he was like, okay, you. And it was a very huge crowd. I still remember, and I jumped into that whole thing, and I just said, I just want to represent my country by singing a song. And I myself am a vocalist, and I have sung, and I have won state level at my degree. I'm a BTech graduate also. Yeah, so thank you. So that way I just, okay, all right. Thank you. Please. Okay, I'll just sing song for every daughter here. I mean, yeah. So हम किसी ना किसी, I mean, of course, parents के हम चैन छबीली रानी होती है. So I'll just sing a song. It's a medley. I hope you will enjoy this. Okay. उंगली पकड़ के तूने चलना सिखाया था, दहलीज़ से पूछी पार कराया, बाबा मैं तेरी मलिका, टुकड़ा तेरे दिल का, एक बार से दहलीज़ पार करा दे, मुड़ के ना देखो दिल भरो मुड़ के देखो दिल भरो मुड़ के देखो दिल भरो. Thank you.